The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and Adela's world shattered with it. She stood frozen in her white wedding dress, the delicate lace suddenly feeling like chains around her body. Min-woo's voice echoed through the speakers, each word a knife twisting deeper into her chest. "It was all a bet," he said, his lips curling into a smirk that she'd never seen before. "My boys wagered 3,000,000 that I couldn't date the African girl for a whole year. Guess what? I won." The room erupted in laughter. Cameras flashed. Phones pointed at her from every direction. Adela's legs trembled as Heroine, her best friend, her sister from another mother, stepped forward with that same cruel smile. "Did you really think someone like him would actually marry you?" Hygiene's voice cut through the noise. "I told him everything, Adeola. Every insecurity you shared, every fear, every weakness. We used it all. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button right now because this story gets even more intense. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next." Adeola couldn't breathe. The wedding venue in Gangnam, which had looked like a dream an hour ago, now felt like a nightmare. She stumbled backward, her hand reaching for something, anything to steady herself. The faces around her blurred into a sea of mockery and pity. Someone shouted, "It's going viral already." Another person laughed, "This is better than any K-drama." Her mind raced back through the past year. Every kiss, every whispered promise, every moment she'd believed was real. The time Min-woo held her when she cried about her mother being sick back in Lagos. The night he proposed under the cherry blossoms in Uido Park. The morning she transferred her entire savings, 60 million won, 3 years of brutal work and sacrifice, because Hygiene said her mother needed emergency surgery. It was all lies. Every single moment. "The money," Adeola whispered, her voice barely audible. "My savings." Min-woo shrugged, adjusting his expensive watch. "Consider it payment for the entertainment. You really thought we were friends? You really thought you belonged here?" Something inside Adeola snapped. Not her spirit, but her restraint. She lunged forward, her hand connecting with Min-woo's face with a sharp crack that silenced the room. For a moment, just a moment, she felt powerful. Then the cameras zoomed in closer, capturing her rage, her pain, her humiliation for the world to consume. "You're nothing," she spat at him, tears streaming down her face. "Both of you are absolutely nothing." She ran. The wedding dress tangled around her legs as she pushed through the crowd, through the doors, into the Seoul streets. People stared. A bride running alone, mascara streaking her face, was quite a spectacle. She didn't care anymore. She just ran until her lungs burned and her feet bled in the expensive heels she'd bought specifically for this day. Her Goshawan in Mapo-gu had never felt smaller. Adeola collapsed against the door, sliding down to the floor as sobs racked her body. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Notifications flooded in. She made the mistake of looking. The video was everywhere. Korean social media had exploded. The comments were vicious. "Foreign gold digger gets what she deserves. Why would anyone marry that? She actually believed it, LMAO." Some were sympathetic, but those were drowned out by the hatred, the racism, the absolute delight people took in her destruction. Adeola threw her phone across the room and pulled her knees to her chest. She'd come to Seoul 5 years ago with dreams bigger than the sky. Graduate school in international business. A good job. A life she'd built from nothing. And now she was a trending topic, a joke, a cautionary tale. 3 days passed in a blur. She didn't eat. Barely drank water. The wedding dress lay crumpled in the corner like a ghost. Adeola existed in a fog of shame and despair, unable to face the world outside her tiny room. Then came the knock. "Miss Adeola? It's Mr. Tae." Her boss. Of course. She hadn't even thought about work. Hadn't thought about anything beyond the crushing weight of her humiliation. With trembling hands, she opened the door a crack. Tae stood there in his usual impeccable suit, but his face held an expression she'd never seen in 3 years of working as his executive assistant. Anger. Pure, controlled fury that made his jaw tight and his dark eyes sharp as glass. "May I come in?" His voice was gentle despite the tension in his body. Adeola stepped back, suddenly aware of how she must look. Unwashed, still in the slip she'd worn under the wedding dress, her hair a mess. But Tae didn't seem to notice or care. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "I saw the video," he said quietly. Fresh tears spilled down Adela's cheeks. The whole world saw the video. "I'm going to destroy him." The words were so calm, so matter-of-fact, that Adeola almost didn't process them. She looked up at Tae, this man she'd worked beside for 3 years, preparing his meetings, managing his schedule, watching him build his tech investment empire with ruthless precision. She'd always found him handsome in a distant, untouchable way. But she'd never seen this side of him. "What?" she whispered. Tae moved closer, and for the first time, she noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Minwoo works for Young Industries. I know the CEO. I know his investors. I know every financial thread holding his pathetic life together." He paused, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "And I'm going to pull every single one until there's nothing left." "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Why would you do that for me?" Tae's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face before he locked it away. "Because you don't deserve what they did to you. Because in 3 years, you've been nothing but brilliant, kind, and loyal. Because—" he stopped himself, jaw clenching. "Because I'm going to make sure he regrets ever thinking he could humiliate you." Before Adeola could respond, Tae pulled out his phone and made a call. She watched, stunned, as he spoke in rapid Korean, his tone shifting from cordial to threatening in seconds. When he hung up, he turned back to her. "Pack a bag. You're coming with me." "I can't just." "Yes, you can." His voice softened. "You can't stay here, Adeola. The address is probably already leaked online. My penthouse in Hanamdong has security, privacy, and a guest suite that's sitting empty. I'm not asking." Something about his certainty, his absolute conviction that he could fix this, made Adeola want to believe. She was so tired of being strong, of carrying everything alone. So she nodded and packed what little she had while Tae waited by the door, his presence a shield against the world outside. The drive to Hanamdong was silent. Adeola stared out the window at the Seoul she'd loved, wondering if she'd ever feel safe in this city again. Tae's penthouse was exactly what she'd expected. Sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. But it was also surprisingly warm, filled with books and art that spoke of actual personality rather than just wealth. "This is your space," Tae said, showing her to a beautifully appointed guest suite. "No expectations. No timeline. Just rest." "Tae, I don't understand why you're doing this." He turned to face her fully, and in the soft evening light streaming through the windows, Adeola saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Maybe one day I'll tell you," he said quietly. "But right now you need to heal. Let me handle the rest." Over the next 48 hours, Adeola watched from the safety of Tae's penthouse as her ex-fiancé's life imploded. It started with Min Woo losing his position at Young Industries. Then his investors pulled out of his side projects, 300 million won evaporating overnight. Lawsuits appeared, filed by Tae's legal team for fraud, defamation, and emotional distress. The same social media that had mocked Adeola suddenly turned on Min Woo as details of his cruelty emerged. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think Tae should do next. And if you're enjoying this story, smash that like button. Tae came home each evening and found Adeola curled up on the guest suite's window seat, watching the city lights. He never pushed her to talk, just left thoughtful gestures, ingredients for jollof rice in the kitchen, Nigerian movies cued on the TV, her favorite tea appearing on the counter each morning. On the 4th night, Adeola emerged from her room and found Tae on the balcony, tie loosened, looking exhausted. Without thinking, she poured 2 glasses of wine and joined him. "Thank you," she said simply. Tae accepted the wine, their fingers brushing. The touch sent electricity up Adela's arm. "You don't have to thank me. I do. You've done more for me in 4 days than anyone has in years." She paused, gathering courage. "Why, Tae? Really, why?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he turned to her, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly undid her. "I've watched you for 3 years, Adeola. Every morning you walk into that office with your head high. You help everyone, even people who don't deserve it. You laugh at my terrible jokes. You remember everyone's birthdays. You light up every room you enter." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And I told myself it was wrong to feel anything beyond professional respect. You were my assistant. It was inappropriate. But then I saw that video, and I realized I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't watch you suffer and do nothing." Adela's breath caught. "Tae. I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly, setting down his wine glass. "I know you're healing. I know this is complicated. I just needed you to know that you've always been seen. Truly seen. Not as a bet or a joke or anything other than the incredible woman you are." She didn't plan what happened next. Maybe it was the wine, or the vulnerability in his confession, or the fact that for the first time in days she felt safe enough to want something. But Adeola closed the distance between them and kissed him. Tae froze for a heartbeat, then his hands came up to cradle her face with a gentleness that made her want to cry. The kiss was soft, tentative, like they were both afraid the other might disappear. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Adeola saw tears in Tae's eyes. "I'm broken right now," she whispered against his lips. "I'm a mess." "You're not broken," Tae replied, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "You're healing. And I'll wait as long as it takes." They stood there on the balcony, holding each other as the Han River glittered below, and for the first time since her world collapsed, Adeola felt something other than pain. She felt hope. The next morning, Adeola woke to find Tae making breakfast, badly. She laughed, actually laughed, watching him struggle with the coffee maker. He turned at the sound, and his smile was so genuine, so full of warmth, that she felt something shift in her chest. "I'm a disaster in the kitchen," he admitted. "Move over," Adeola said, hip-checking him away from the stove. "Let me show you how it's done." They cooked together, bumping elbows, stealing glances, the air between them charged with possibility. When Tae's hand settled on her waist as he reached past her for a pan, she didn't move away. When she fed him a bite of scrambled eggs and his lips lingered on her fingers, she felt heat pool in her stomach. "Adeola," Tae said softly, catching her hand. "I meant what I said. No pressure. We can take this as slow as you need." She turned to face him fully, her back against the counter. "What if I don't want slow?" The hunger that flashed in Tae's eyes made her knees weak, but he kept his touch gentle as he stepped closer, caging her against the counter with his arms. "Then tell me what you want." "I want to feel something other than shame," she breathed. "I want to remember what it's like to be wanted for real, not as a joke or a bet. I want you." Tae's control snapped. He kissed her hard, deeply, like he'd been holding back for years and finally had permission to let go. Adeola matched his intensity, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Tae rested his forehead against hers. "You are wanted," he said fiercely. "You are valued. You are cherished. And I will spend every day proving that to you if you'll let me." They spent the day together, really together, not as boss and assistant but as two people discovering each other. Tae showed her his art collection, explaining the story behind each piece. Adeola taught him Yoruba phrases, laughing when he butchered the pronunciation. They ordered too much takeout and watched bad movies on the couch, gradually migrating closer until Adeola was tucked against Tae's side, his arm around her shoulders. "Tell me about Lagos," Tae said during a particularly boring scene. "What do you miss most?" Adeola thought for a moment. The chaos. The noise. The way everyone is in everyone's business, but in a good way, you know? Seoul is beautiful, but it's so orderly, quiet. Sometimes I miss the mess of home. Do you want to go back? No, she said, surprising herself with the certainty. Korea is home now. Seoul is home. Even after everything, I don't want to leave. Tae's arm tightened around her. Good. Because I don't want you to go. That night, they kissed again on the couch, slower this time, exploring. Tae's hand stayed respectful, but Adeola could feel the restraint in every touch, the way he held himself back. She appreciated it even as part of her wanted him to lose control completely. Stay with me tonight, she whispered against his mouth. Just sleep. I don't want to be alone. So they did. Tae held her in the guest room bed, both of them fully clothed, and Adeola felt safer than she had in months. His heartbeat under her ear was steady, grounding. She fell asleep to the rhythm of it, wrapped in arms that asked for nothing but gave everything. 2 weeks passed in a beautiful bubble. Adeola wasn't ready to face the world yet, but she was ready to face herself. She started working out in Tae's home gym, reclaiming her body from the shame that had colonized it. She video called her mother in Lagos and finally told her everything, crying through the confession while Tae held her hand just out of frame. This man who is helping you, her mother said in Yoruba, her eyes knowing even through the screen. He loves you, doesn't he? Yes, Adeola admitted. I think he does. And you? How do you feel? I'm falling for him, Mama. Is that crazy? After everything that just happened? Her mother smiled. The heart heals in its own time, Omomi. If he treats you well, if he respects you, then maybe this is your blessing coming through the pain. After the call, Adeola found Tae in his home office, working late. She didn't announce herself, just climbed into his lap and kissed him until he forgot about spreadsheets and investor calls. His hands gripped her hips, and she felt him hard beneath her, but still he didn't push for more. You're killing me, he groaned against her neck. Good, she teased, grinding down slightly. His control shattered just a bit, and she loved the sound he made. I want you to think about me. I always think about you, Tae admitted, pulling back to look at her. 3 years, Adeola. I've thought about you every day for 3 years. The confession made her bold. Then take me to bed properly. I'm ready. Are you sure? His hand cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheek. I need you to be sure. I'm sure. What happened next was slow, reverent, nothing like the performative intimacy she'd experienced with Min Woo. Tae touched her like she was precious, kissing every inch of skin as he revealed it, whispering Korean and broken Yoruba endearments against her body. When they finally came together, Adeola cried, but this time from joy, from feeling whole again, from the overwhelming rightness of being seen and chosen and loved. After, wrapped in expensive sheets with Tae's arms around her, Adeola finally felt like herself again. Not the broken version Min Woo had left behind, but someone new. Someone stronger. I love you, she said into the darkness. I know it's fast and complicated, but I love you. Tae's arms tightened. I've loved you since the day you corrected my English in that meeting and then apologized for 10 minutes straight. I've loved you through every coffee you brought me, every smile you gave me, every moment you existed in my world. This isn't fast, Adeola. This is 3 years in the making. 1 month after the worst day of her life, Adeola returned to work. She walked into Tae's company with her head high, wearing a power suit that made her feel invincible. The office went quiet when she appeared, but Tae was there immediately, his hand finding the small of her back. Your new office is on the executive floor, he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. As VP of Operations, you'll be working directly with me on all major projects. The promotion was real, earned through years of excellent work, but the message was clear. Adeola was protected, valued, and not going anywhere. The whispers didn't stop immediately, but they changed. Respect replaced pity. Admiration replaced mockery. Adeola rebuilt her reputation one successful project at a time, and Tae was beside her through all of it, proud and supportive. 3 months after she returned to work, Min-woo appeared at the building. Security called up immediately, and Adeola felt her stomach drop. But when Tae reached for her hand, she found her courage. "Let him up," she said. "I'm ready to face him." Min-woo looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, cheap suit, the arrogance completely stripped away. He stood in the lobby like a ghost of his former self, and Adeola felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just indifference. "Adeola, please," he started, his voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I lost everything. My job, my reputation, my money. I just need you to drop the lawsuits." "No," she said simply. Tae stood slightly behind her, a silent support, letting her handle this herself. "You humiliated me because you thought I was beneath you. You used me, degraded me, and laughed while doing it. Now you face the consequences." "But I'm ruined." "Good." Adeola stepped closer, and Min-woo actually flinched. "You tried to break me because you thought I was weak. You thought being different, being foreign, being black made me less than. But you were wrong. I survived you. I'm thriving despite you. And you." She smiled coldly. "You're exactly what you always were. Small, cruel, and utterly forgettable. You can't just." "Security," Tae said quietly, and 2 guards appeared immediately. "Mr. Kim is leaving now. He won't be back." As Min-woo was escorted out, Adeola felt the last weight lift from her chest. She turned to Tae, who was looking at her with such pride and love that she wanted to kiss him right there in the lobby. So she did. Let people talk. Let them see. She was done hiding. "That was incredible," Tae murmured against her lips. "You're incredible." 6 months after the wedding that never was, Tae took Adeola to Bukshan Hanok village. They walked through the traditional houses hand in hand, tourists snapping photos around them, and Adeola felt at peace. Seoul really was home now, not despite the pain but because of what she'd built from it. "I have something to ask you," Tae said, stopping in front of a particularly beautiful hanok. He was nervous, she realized. This confident, powerful man was actually nervous. "Tae." He pulled out a small box, and Adela's heart stopped. "I know we haven't been officially together that long, but I've loved you for years. You've made me better, softer, more human. You've shown me what real courage looks like." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a blend of traditional Korean and Nigerian design. "Marry me, Adeola. Not for show, not for a bet, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded frantically. "Yes. Yes, of course yes." Tae slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her deeply, not caring about the tourists now definitely taking photos. Adeola laughed against his mouth, joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. "I'm going to make you the happiest woman alive," Tae promised. "You already do," she replied. Their wedding, when it came 3 months later, was everything the first one should have been. Held at a beautiful hanok venue in Jeonju, it blended Korean and Yoruba traditions seamlessly. Adeola wore a traditional white hanbok for the ceremony, then changed into a vibrant Nigerian gele and iro and buba for the reception. Tae wore a hanbok for the Korean portion and changed into a gbada for the Nigerian celebration. Adela's family flew in from Lagos, and her mother cried through the entire ceremony. Tae's business associates attended, including several who'd helped destroy Min-woo's career, all of them genuinely happy for the couple. Mrs. Park, Tae's housekeeper who'd become like a second mother to Adeola, sat in the front row, beaming. The vows nearly broke Adeola. Tae spoke in both Korean and English, his voice thick with emotion. "You taught me that love isn't about control or possession. It's about showing up every day, seeing someone fully, and choosing them over and over. The worst moment of your life brought you to me, and I will spend the rest of mine making sure you never regret that." Adela's vows, delivered in English and Yoruba with Korean phrases scattered throughout, made half the guests cry. You didn't save me from my pain, she said, holding Tae's hands tight. You walked beside me while I saved myself. You gave me space to heal, strength to fight, and love without conditions. I was looking for someone to complete me, but you showed me I was already whole. You just made that wholeness shine brighter. If you've made it this far, you're amazing. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you loved this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. Your support means everything. The reception was a beautiful chaos of Korean and Nigerian music, both families teaching each other traditional dances, food that blended both cultures in the most delicious ways. Adeola and Tae's first dance was to a mix of a Korean ballad and a Nigerian love song, and halfway through, it started snowing. It's perfect, Adeola whispered, looking up at the soft flakes falling around them. You're perfect, Tae replied, spinning her gently. And you're mine. Yours, she agreed, kissing him as their families cheered. 1 year after the wedding, Adeola woke up in their new home in Songbuk-dong to the smell of coffee and something burning. She smiled, knowing Tae was attempting breakfast again. She found him in the kitchen, cursing at the stove in Korean while smoke rose from a pan. Need help? She asked, laughing. Tae turned, his face lighting up the way it always did when he saw her. I was trying to make your mother's recipe. I failed spectacularly. Adeola moved into his arms, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. You're lucky I love you anyway. The luckiest man alive, he agreed, holding her close. Outside, Seoul was waking up, the city that had witnessed her destruction and her resurrection, her pain and her triumph. But inside their home, wrapped in arms that had never let her fall, Adeola had everything she needed. She'd come to Seoul with dreams, lost everything, and rebuilt herself stronger. The betrayal that nearly destroyed her had led her to a love more real than anything she'd imagined. Some stories don't end with revenge or bitterness. Some end with two people choosing each other every single day, building something beautiful from broken pieces. This was one of those stories. And it was hers.